Well, now that I've done the first test print that came up on the G code, what I usually do is I would like to make sure that the eSteps are correct and eventually do a flow rate cube as well. So let's do the eSteps calibration on ER20 ER20. So far I am really digging this machine. So in order to do the eSteps, what we need is a Sharpie and a ruler. So what we're gonna do is, what we really want is, if we ask the machine to extrude 100 millimeters of filament, then it should extrude 100 millimeters of filament. So for that, you do it two ways. One is free air and then one with the nozzle on. So for that, I'm not gonna do the free air now. I'm just gonna do with the nozzle on. For free air, what you do is you're gonna do the exact same steps. Just unhook this coupler over here so the filament flows in the air, not through the nozzle, so there is no resistance. But since the filament extrudes with resistance via the nozzle, so I like to do it with the nozzle on. First step is I'm gonna preheat my nozzle to 200 degrees, because that's the temperature I like to print this filament at. The Polaroid Premium PLA, this purple is really good. Polaroid Premium PLA purple is beautiful. And while the nozzle heats up, I'm gonna raise my Z so we can get a good look at it. Alright, the Z is going up. I'm just gonna take this ruler and the Sharpie, and I'm gonna measure 100 mm and 120 mm, and I'm gonna mark it on the filament. Gonna do it like this. My first mark is 100 millimeters and my second mark is 120 millimeters. Alright? And while I've done that, I'm gonna go in and check the stock eStep settings. Should be in configuration or motion. Configuration, advanced settings. Yep, steps per millimeters right here. And my eSteps per millimeter are set to 93, which is usually the stock setting. Note down this number because you're gonna need it. 93 millimeters per second. And our nozzle is at temperature now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask the extruder to extrude 100 millimeters. One, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So now just ask the extruder to extrude 100 millimeters. And it's already started extruding. Right? As you can see. And we're gonna see if it actually extrudes 100 millimeters, or if it under extrudes, that is less than 100 millimeters, or if it over extrudes, which is more than 100 millimeters, is why we made another mark at 120 millimeters to see if it extrudes more than 100 millimeters, which is also known as an over extrusion. If it extrudes less than 100 millimeters, it's called under extrusion. So we're just gonna wait for this to finish. then we're gonna see how I did. The gears are moving fine, filament's getting pushed out nicely, despite this crazy stupid angle. I'm gonna have to figure something out for that. I'll probably have to print like a side filament holder for this, because this is not gonna work. And I think it's done. Let's take a look. Alright, so the gear is not moving. That means it's done extruding. No filament, no more filament is coming out. And here are your marks. So the first one was 100 millimeter mark. The second one was 120. We can see that it did not extrude 100 millimeters. That means it's under extruding, which is usually the case. So now we're gonna do our math and calculate our new eSteps. Let's measure out how much of an under extrusion this was. It's seems like 6 to 7 millimeters under extruded. I'm gonna stick with 6 millimeters. So 100 minus 6 equals 94 millimeter extruded. And the math for this is, so here's our mathematics. So we extruded 94 and our stock number was 93, so it's 93 times 100, that's 9300, divided by how so much ever we under extruded or over extruded. In our case it was 94, and 9300 divided by 94 is equal to our new eSteps. And this is our new eSteps value, 98.936, which I'm gonna write down. We're gonna go back to our configuration, advanced settings, steps per millimeter, and change this to 98.93, 98.9. There we go, 98.9. Now the important thing to do after this is to go back and do load settings and store settings, because if you don't do that, you'll hear this beep. If you don't do that, the new values or settings are not going to get saved to your EEP ROM, and next time you start your printer, it's gonna not remember the new steps and it's gonna run with the 93 stock settings. So now we've done that, we're gonna do the same thing again, measure out 100 and 120 millimeters and extrude 100 millimeters and see if this time it's spot on. Alright, so I've made new marks for 100 millimeters and 120 millimeters, and I'm gonna go here and motion, move axes. My nozzle is still hot, by the way. Extruder, move 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. And now we're just gonna see what happens this time. It should be really close to 100 this time. Let me just grab this junk. Okay, we are done extruding 100 mm. I actually had to redo it because the first time it seemed like I didn't hit store settings, I hit load settings first. So I had to change the eSteps number to the correct 98.9 again. And it asked to extrude 100 millimeters. And look at this. It's on point right there on the money. So that's how you do your calibrate your eSteps, folks. on an A1 ER20 or pretty much any other machine.